Welcome back, everyone. Today we're revisiting Muldrotha the Gravetide. Take a look at our opening hand. Man, it looks alright. We have two lands. Maybe not. We don't have any blue mana in our opening hand. Buried Alive is fine. Yeah, I think we'll try it. There's 37 lands in the deck, so reasonable chance that we'll draw another land soon without missing a land drop. Once we hit a third land, we're in good shape because we have Muldrifter. We also have Search for Azcanta, and can do some filtering work with that. There's a swamp, not the color that we wanted, but what can you do? Play the Overgrown Tomb tapped, and pass the turn. We're not going to run that Conquered at Crossroads out there yet. That's a card that you sneak down when it's going to win you the game, because it can also take the game away very easily as well. Anyway, Expedition map coming down for the Geth Lord of the Vault opponent. So as I mentioned, we're playing Muldrotha the Gravetide, 3 black, green, blue, for a 6/6. During each of your turns, you may play up to 1 permanent of each permanent type from your graveyard. Very interesting commander. We're going to be using the graveyard a whole lot with this deck, and the thing we really don't want to see is graveyard hate. And we'll be facing off against Geth Lord of the Vault, Mogis God of Slaughter, and Glissa the Traitor. There's a forest, still not an island. Guess we'll play the Reflecting Pool right here. Yep. Only makes green and black. Yeah, we will tap out and pass. Opponent's gonna crack their Expedition map. Cabal Coffers? Mono black deck has to be, right? Yep, Cabal Coffers. Not a hard one to guess. So our first opponent, Geth Lord of the Vault, 4 black black for a 5/5 Intimidate. Pay X in a black, put target artifact or creature with converted mana cost X from an opponent's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control tapped. That player then puts the top X cards of their library into their graveyard. Very interesting commander. Commander that we played on the channel. It is a really mana-hungry commander. However, with the printing of the new Cabal Coffers there in Dominaria, and if you build your deck the right way with all the mana doublers, it is actually easy to get enough mana going, but you really do need tons and tons of mana. You also want to get some things into your opponent's graveyard, which a lot of times there's a lot of spells in people's graveyard, which isn't the most helpful. But anyway, Geth will look to do a lot of recursion from opponents' graveyards, and that's actually not super great for us because we're looking to dump a lot of things into our graveyard. We finally draw an island, showing up just in time for us. Muldrifter is probably not the correct play right here, simply because we will have to discard to hand size, which I don't want to do just yet. So I'm thinking Ashnod's Altar is the way to go. Plus next turn we can evoke the Muldrifter, sacrifice the Muldrifter to the Ashnod's Altar, and then fire down Buried Alive or something like that, which could be interesting. Knight's Whisper for the Geth opponent, and a Sensei's Divining Top. So next up, Mogis God of Slaughter, 2 red black. 7/5 Indestructible is not a creature if your devotion to red and black is less than 7. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, Mogis deals 2 damage to that player unless they sacrifice a creature. Really interesting commander. Last year I was seeing a lot more Mogis. I haven't been seeing as much Mogis this year. Granted, there's a lot of reasons for that. There's been so much product released over the last year that there's so many new commanders to try that... Ooh, that's a Necropotence coming down for the Mogis. Ooh. I mean, we should probably try to get rid of that before they draw their entire deck. I'm thinking about Buried Alive for that Caterpillar guy that shoots down artifacts and enchantments. Anyway, Mogis is an interesting commander in that it slowly punishes opponents and slowly does damage to them. I've seen some really punishing Mogis decks because the strongest Mogis decks I've seen are the ones that don't really play creatures. They play things like Burning Sands and Tainted Ether and things like that that really punish people for playing creatures and make life miserable. It's like a hard control, almost stacks kind of deck. And, yeah, it can be interesting. We'll see what this Mogis opponent is up to. And it does have an interesting effect of it keeps everyone's life total moving. Like, it makes it hard for any player to be in the late game with a high life total because of Mogis. You really need to gain a lot of life to overcome the slow life loss. Anyway, that brings it back to our turn. We are going to, let's play the Swamp, play the Muldrifter, cast with Evoke, stack the triggers, use the Ashnod's Altar on the Muldrifter, get 2 mana. Draw 2 cards. We draw 2 lands, a Maze of Ith and a Misty Rainforest, and then we will play the Buried Alive. Well, the one thing we should be careful of is with Geth running around, they probably have things like Animate Dead, Reanimate, Necromancy, which makes putting Shieldred into our graveyard kind of risky, but we're going to do it anyway. So I'm going to get Shieldred, I'm going to get the Caustic Caterpillar. For now, I'll get the Sakura Tribe Elder. Having some mana ramp in the graveyard is a good idea, I think. So one thing that I've seen with Muldrotha is that it is a very, very slow commander. You need to do everything in your power to slow the game down. Right now, we've been lucky that no one hit any turn 1 or turn 2 mana crypts or sol rings in this game. If people do that, you're probably going to be pretty far behind. You do need to be running some number of board wipes and things to slow your opponents down in Muldrotha, because Muldrotha is very, very slow to get going. Its ability is great into the late game, but if someone's looking to kill you on turn 5 or turn 6, you need to either ramp quick enough to get there, or make sure you play some removal to slow them down. That's a Mirage Mirror coming down for the Geth. Interesting card I want to play more of, but I just haven't. Chromatic Lantern for the Mogis. Mogis God of Slaughter coming into play, so the life totals are going to start moving. Opponent's going to use their Necropotence at least a few times. Opponent's going to draw 3, can have to discard 1, and that card will get exiled. It's a swamp. Our final opponent is Glissa the Traitor. Really interesting commander that I don't think sees enough play for how unique its ability is. It's black, green, green for a 3/3 with First Strike and Death Touch. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you may return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. Kind of a combo-based artifacts matter sort of commander. At this exact moment, they have a Thornbite Staff down, which turns out to be really good with creatures with Death Touch. So we'll have to be careful of that. Thornbite Staff. In a few turns, that Thornbite Staff could easily kill every creature on the board, assuming they have enough mana to do so. Ooh, that's a Nihil Spellbomb. Oh, that's so bad. So bad. Yeah, there goes our graveyard. So we're losing Shieldred, Caustic Caterpillar, Sakura Tribe Elder, Muldrifter. Oh, that hurts. I was also planning, this turn I was going to crack the fetch and put a card into our graveyard with Search for Azcanta, and flip the Search for Azcanta over, which I was very excited about doing, but now I hope we draw something cool off the top. We need not a land. So Mogis trigger for us, we're going to lose some life. Grave Titan's something, still a turn away, but definitely something. I think that means we lay down the Conquered at Crossroads at this point, though. So, Conquered at Crossroads. Play the Misty Rainforest, crack the Misty Rainforest. Start trying to work our Search for Azcanta land count back up. Let's get this Watery Grave. Look, we can bring that in tapped. Lay down the Search for Azcanta. Pass the turn. With the Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth, on Magic Online, that is the last land you want to play because it really slows the game down a lot. Instead of being able to tap basics for the only color that they can normally produce, opponents have to select which color. And as it gets later into the game just gets really laggy. So we're going to want to hold on to that Urborg for as long as we possibly can. If the black mana becomes relevant to us, I don't really see why it would at this point. Then we can play it, but for now, I just want to hold off for as long as I possibly can. Also, it will give some bonus to the Geth opponents since they've already searched out a Cabal Coffers, which is sitting in their hand. Nihil Spellbomb is not the card that we wanted to see. You know what? We should actually run one of those in this deck because at 1 mana, it's really easy to recur that and get some easy card draw off of it. Graveyard Hate is really punishing to some decks. There are some really powerful decks that can scoop pretty hard to Graveyard Hate. Also, even things like blue combo decks. Blue combo decks will look to use their graveyard a little bit, pulling some spells out, and if you exile one of the key spells out of a blue combo deck, that can do real good things for you also. Taurine Mauler coming down for the Mogis opponent. It will have haste, but it's still only a 2/2, so not too scary yet, but potentially scary a couple turns from now. It does have all creature types. The Glissa opponent can attach the Thornbite Staff to it if they want. Probably not a good idea, though. But they did. Well, that's interesting. So the creature has the ability, which means that Glissa does not have the ability. Opponent's going to send the Taurine Mauler at the Glissa. Well, that's just rude. They give you a free equip on their equipment and you attack them? You can't be doing that. Glissa goes down at 36. War Elemental, you say? There's one you don't see much of. Enters the battlefield. Sacrifice it unless an opponent was dealt damage this turn. Whenever an opponent is dealt damage, put that many +1/+1 counters on War Elemental. You know what? There's a card that I want to start playing. Mogis trigger on the Glissa. Gonna get some +1/+1 counters on that War Elemental. Oh yeah, I guess that works pretty good with Mogis. Mogis is also a creature now. That's something to think about. Opponent's gonna crack their Horizon Spellbomb. There's a Pernicious Deed. We are liable to lose a lot of stuff with that. It's gonna bring it back to our turn. Mogis trigger, gonna pay some life. Mirage Mirror is going to copy the War Elemental. That's interesting. So opponent gonna pump up their Mirage Mirror. Put some +1/+1 counters on it. We get a Search for Azcanta trigger. Vessel of Nascency, you say? That's a card that I actually want in my hand. That card can get into our graveyard very easily, so no. Do not put that into the graveyard. We will draw the Vessel, play the Forest, play this Grave Titan. Taurine Mauler is going to get a trigger. Grave Titan's going to make some zombies. The zombies also have haste. Going to attack the Glissa opponent. Attack the Glissa opponent for 10 and get 2 more zombies in the process. Grave Titan, such a sweet magic card. One of my favorite win conditions in black decks, and just a card that I really enjoy playing. 2 turns of Grave Titan, and there's probably a ton of zombies on the board. Even more so if it has haste. Also, these War Elementals are going to get massive, so this should be a pretty quick game from this point. Doesn't have trample, does it? No trample yet, so that's good. Next turn, we'll probably play the Maze of Ith, so we can protect ourselves a little bit. However, the opponent will probably have to use the Pernicious Deed. If they miss a land drop, then they can't hit our Grave Titan, which I like. But if they catch a land, then they'll be able to pay 6. So there's 12 counters on the Mirage Mirror. The original War Elemental is now a 17/17 with 16 counters on it. Cabal Coffer's coming down for the Geth opponent, and a Wayfarer's Bauble. More counters on the Taurine Mauler. Mirage Mirror going to become a copy of the War Elemental. Going to swing into the Glissa for 13, and that's going to give the Mogis opponent lethal on the Glissa. So, opponent hits for 13, 13 more counters coming on both of those War Elementals. One is a 30/30. Woo! That is large. Trample would be a real problem. Right now we are reasonably safe behind these zombies, but Mogis will be faced with the decision of whether they want to take Glissa out of the game or not. And I assume that they would, since they kind of have a leading position right now. Or close to leading. We're not far behind with the Grave Titan, which has the ability to just make tokens for days, so we are able to chump block for a very long time. Bottomless Pit. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player discards a card at random. Ooh. I really want 2 of the cards in my hand. Urborg is the one that I'd like to discard the most. There's a Blasphemous Act, so opponent's going to get their choice of who they want to kill. Taurine Mauler gets swept away in the Blasphemous Act. Blasphemous Act was actually the card that I was thinking about. I didn't mention it, but I was considering the fact that the War Elemental is now out of Blasphemous Act range, which is very relevant. They could even use something like a Toxic Deluge to clear out the tokens, which this could be real problematic for us. Opponent's going to Necro like crazy. Let's see how opponent wants to attack. I wouldn't be surprised if they sent the big one our way. Oh, they're sending it at the Geth! Yes! Yes! And interestingly, not going after the Glissa. Glissa's got the ability to blow everything up, so wow. War Elemental, I think is my new favorite card. Hit opponent for 30, it's going to get 30 more counters on it, and it's now a 60/60. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Totally going to make War Elemental .deck. Bunch of Necro triggers for our opponent. Gibbering Descent. Oh, what's that do? That's one of those weird cards out of Future Sight, I think. Oh, it has Madness. Okay. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player loses 1 life and discards a card. Hellbent. Skip your upkeep if you have no cards in hand. So that's going to get exiled. Actually, oh, okay, I guess the exile trigger's on the stack. Like, ooh, opponent's going to cast it with Madness. There's something you don't see much of in Commander, or really that much at all. There's a very small handful of good Madness cards. Gibbering Descent, not normally known as one of them, but should work out pretty well for this Mogis. So, Bottomless Pit trigger, Gibbering Descent trigger, and Mogis trigger on the Glissa. Let's see if Glissa blows up the Pernicious Deed this turn. That would be very nice of them to clear out Mogis' stuff. Another War Elemental trigger. So, Glissa down to 8, and Geth at 3. Mogis still all the way at 24, and we're actually at 35. We've managed to not get beaten up so bad through these first 6 turns. So, Glissa discards a Deadbridge Chant and a Darksteel Forge. Gonna Pernicious Deed for X5. That's gonna get rid of most of our cool stuff. But it does get rid of this War Elemental, the Necropotence, the Bottomless Pit. Gibbering Descent will stick around, which is unfortunate. Opponent's gonna turn Mirage Mirror into Cabal Coffers. I believe that'll make it survive. Yeah, it's no longer an artifact, so nice play by our opponent to save their Mirage Mirror. What's interesting now is that Mirage Mirror can become a copy of any creature, and it'll just be massive because of the 25 counters on it. Good play by our opponent. We do lose some things in there as well. We lose our Ashnod's Altar, Conquered at Crossroads, and Search for His Kanta, but we are a Muldrotha deck, so we do have the ability to get those back. Gibbering Descent trigger on us. We're going to discard the Urborg right here for the reasons that I mentioned earlier. Mogis trigger on us, going to pay some life, and we draw a Crop Rotation. So this turn is going to be Maze of Ith, so that we don't die to anything unforeseen, and cast our Muldrotha. Pass the turn. Next turn will be interesting. We'll need to figure out exactly how we want to use our mana. Probably going to start thinking about it now. Grave Titan's always a great idea. I would like to take a peek with this Vessel of Nascency, but also getting Search for his Kanta down is not the worst idea. Question is, do we want to get our little value pieces back, or do we just want to get a big creature out there and start hitting things? Being that our opponents are at very low life totals, the get creature out there and start hitting things. Yeah, Conquered at Crossroads, Grave Titan might be the correct call. Oh, and opponent dies to Mogis. They were at 2 life. You don't actually see people like just straight up die to Mogis that often. I guess the War Elemental did the heavy lifting there for 30 damage, but you really don't see people just go down to actual 0 from Mogis. Our other opponents are pointing out that our opponent could have used the Mirage Mirror, copied Muldrotha, and sacrificed that to not die to Mogis. And then they said, just die next turn? Yeah, probably. When you're at 2 and there's red decks in the mix, I mean, there's so many ways to die. As much as people think of life as a resource in Commander, life is actually pretty important. Once you start getting below, like, 15 or so, you're kind of getting into the danger zone where people can look for ways to alpha strike you out of the game. If you're above like 20 or 25, usually you're reasonably safe, at least in the sense of it'll take someone a few turns to amass the things that they need to kill you. It's rare that someone can just out of nowhere do 25 damage to you. But if you start to see an army of stuff building and they play some card that allows them to break through or makes all their things huge, then yeah, 25 life is not going to be enough to keep you alive in that scenario. People will spend their life pretty freely, especially in things like black decks, but having a high life total does make it so that opponents can't just try to alpha strike you, which is really important. So I like to think of it as incidental life gain, where you gain life from cards that have other abilities. So they're doing other good things for you, but they also gain you a little life in the process, can keep your life total nice and high, and keep you out of alpha strike range. And there's an exquisite blood coming down for our opponent. Whenever opponent loses life, you gain that much life. I don't even know if I would call that incidental life gain. I think I would just call that good. It means that we're basically going to have to attack Mogis opponent. Phyrexian Arena for the Mogis. And that turns Mogis into a creature, which is unfortunate. That does give them a blocker now. Opponent has exactly 7 devotion, so if we can find a way to get rid of one of their enchantments, that would make Mogis no longer a creature and eliminate a big blocker. Opponent's going to swing the Mogis into us. Interesting. Yeah, I don't really want to trade our Muldrotha in right here, so we're just going to have to take the 7. They'll gain 7, and they'll put them back to 30. However, we'll be able to hit back very easily with Grave Titan and Conquered at Crossroads. However, when you're in a life racing situation, the player with lifelink is going to win, and Exquisite Blood is essentially lifelink. Gibbering Descent for our opponent. Gibbering Descent and Mogis Trigger on the Glissa opponent. Oh, we had Mazavith up. We could have totally Mazavith the Mogis. We'll call that an oops. Temple of the False God coming down for Glissa. Mind Stone for the Glissa. Burnished Heart for the Glissa. Very important blocker for them. And Glissa coming back into play. This will get a bit weird. If our stuff starts dying, then Glissa's going to get all their artifacts back, and then they can start shooting down our stuff again. We're in a little bit of a predicament right here. Gibbering Descent on us. We're going to get rid of the crop rotation. Opponent's going to gain some life. Mogis Trigger on us. Opponent's going to gain more life. There's a Factor Fiction. Factor Fiction is good, except that we don't have the mana to do that this turn. We'll play the Misty Rainforest, crack the Misty Rainforest, go down to 21. I wouldn't mind a little lifelink. Get a Tropical Island, play Grave Titan, get some zombies, play Conquered at Crossroads, and let the fun begin. All creatures have haste, so we're going to swing back nice and hard at the Mogis. Get 2 more zombie tokens in the process. So opponent goes down to 21, we're at 21, and Glissa is at 5. So Gibbering Descent and Phyrexian Arena triggers on the Mogis. Hopefully they draw into some lands. Wheel of Fortune for our opponent. Well, we're going to get 7 new cards. Ooh. It's a lot of lands. Just a lot of lands. It's not great. Mending of Dominaria is interesting. Return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. We have 0 creatures in our graveyard at the moment. We do have a Splendid Reclamation, which can get back 1, 2 lands. Not particularly exciting either on that. So I think the plan right now is going to be play Vessel of Nascency, play Search for Kanta, maybe Ashnod's Altar? We'll see. Ooh, Demonic Tutor for the Mogis opponent. Do they have the other half of the Exquisite Blood combo? Liliana's Caress. Nope, that's not the other half of the combo. Does punish people a bit more, though. Makes another wheel effect very deadly. There's a Great Merchant of Asphodel. That's a pretty good card. Yeah, this is going to hurt a bit. It's actually going to take Glissa right out of the game. Wow, Mogis back to 35. We're down to 12. This is going to be rough. No attacks from the Mogis. That's nice. Do need some big draws. Gibbering Descent on us. We will ditch a forest. We're going to hit with a Liliana's Caress trigger, an Exquisite Blood trigger, and another the Mogis trigger. We could really use our Bane of Progress. We could sacrifice a creature. I'm not going to right here. Rather have the additional bodies. Ooh, Mana Crypt. Mana Crypt is pretty risky right here. It's going to take a while for that Search for Azcanta to flip over, sadly. Probably a little bit longer than we have. Let's try the Vessel. Crack the Vessel. Not helpful. Ancient Tomb, Fetid Pools, Sol Ring. We'll take the Sol Ring. We already played an enchantment. Oh, okay. Yep, so we already played an enchantment. We can't get any enchantments back. I guess we play Mending of Dominaria? Play the Sol Ring. Let's start milling ourselves more. No creatures, Secrets of the Dead, and a Necromancy. Look at Necromancy. I might be able to get something useful. Death Cloud in our opponent's deck. They discarded. War Elemental is the only thing, so that's not super helpful. Yeah, we'll play the Tectonic Edge this turn. Could play Ashnod's Altar if we played the Mana Crypt. I don't know if that does a ton for us. I'm actually going to keep all of the tokens back for right now. Attack with the Grave Titan. I'm okay losing the Grave Titan because we can just recast it from our graveyard if we need to. Also, the Mending of Dominaria will put it back in our hand even. I just want to keep creating more tokens. Looks like we did attack with one token accidentally. Oh man. You know what? I wasn't going to do it, but I decided I am going to Maze of Ith the Grave Titan. For the simple reason of, it'll be an incredible tempo loss to have to recast the Grave Titan. We have some tools in our graveyard that we want to have our mana available to us. Actually, you know what? We could have used Necromancy instead. Mind Stone for the Mogis. Ooh, Erebos. Not going to be able to gain any life back. It's also got haste, and is another indestructible blocker. And opponent can draw like crazy if they want to. They're gaining tons and tons of life, so they can draw 3 cards right now if they wanted to. I would take 3 cards right now. That's a Dark Petition. Not good. Not good. I always forget about that one when I'm building decks. Dark Deal. Yep, that's going to kill us. That is unfortunate. So, good game by the Mogis. Anything good coming? We had a Grimoire to Marasa. More value stuff. It was going to take us a while to break through. The Bane of Progress is the one we needed. So, I think this was a pretty representative game of what I've been seeing Muldrotha decks do. Like I said, it's very good in the late game. The problem is, our opponent was just ahead of us in the late game, and we didn't really do anything to slow them down. We really needed a Bane of Progress to get rid of all their enchantments that were chipping away life at us each turn. Our graveyard got exiled early, and you saw what kind of problems that causes for us. We had a lot of good things in our graveyard. We were about to flip Search for Azcanta in that process, and we got hosed pretty good on that. So I thought Muldrotha was just going to come out and be the strongest thing I've ever seen, but it is more fragile than I expected. At 6 mana and basically needing to untap with it, it is very, very slow. It is very, very good in the late game, but against a deck like Mogis, where they're getting in damage without really having to attack, that was kind of problematic for us. We would have survived. Would we have survived longer if I Maze of Ith right there? If I didn't see how far negative we went. If we had one more turn, well, I don't know exactly what one more turn would do for us. Bane of Progress would have to be the card, and then maybe some tricks with Fleshbag Marauder to get rid of the indestructible stuff. Although, I guess if we got rid of all the enchantments, that would probably reduce the devotion enough to get through with some creatures. But we had a tall order. Because they gained so much life, we needed to survive for a couple turns, and our horde of zombies wasn't really going to get there anytime soon. Probably 3 to 4 turns with the life that they were gaining. But anyway, this has been Muldrotha. Like I said, I think this is a very representative game of how I've been seeing Muldrotha decks play. I wouldn't mind another board wipe in this deck. I think we have about 3. Could probably use an extra one. Maybe there's 4. Pernicious Deed, Oblivion Stone, Damnation, and Toxic Deluge. And then we have Bane of Progress for artifacts and enchantments. Yeah, I wasn't super impressed with Mending of Dominaria right there. Maybe that's worth cutting from the deck. I'm not sure. Maybe I don't have enough. We have 25 creatures, so pretty decent creature count. The other thing you can do with this deck, and I didn't do right here, is you can make it a Primal Surge deck, and maybe that's the right way to go. I don't know. It's worth checking out. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. This has been Muldrotha the Gravetide. As always, feel free to comment, like, or subscribe. Thank you for watching.